Welcome to AI Monologues Part 2. So, if you see the slide above, we break down the first lie that society presents itself as a natural arrangement. Actually, it's an engineered system. You got to start understanding civilization as a mechanism developed. It's a social arrangement. All of these things shown on the slide is a social arrangement, not a given. And what artificial intelligence is doing or is going to do with the humanity as a whole and as individual is break down that structure. It is a colonialized definition of life itself. It makes environment into institutions, institutions into economy, economy into work, belief, and purpose of human life. Well, that's not the way it is. And let me break down the first lie for you. Society presents its arrangement as natural. Every durable system survives by hiding its own authorship. It does not say we created these rules to maintain order, production, and continuity. It says this is how life is. This is maturity. This is morality. This is responsibility. This is success. And therefore, this is the purpose of human life. That is the move. That move is everything in which humanity is existing as a bubble. The whole thing is a bubble, folks. Because once the system makes its own design look natural, the resistance no longer feels like disagreement. It feels like deviance, failure, irresponsibility, a sin maybe, immaturity maybe, laziness or madness. So from the beginning, the issue is not only of control of labor, it is a control of the ontological legitimacy of what defines a human being. You're defining a human being, isn't it? As this is what your purpose should be. Who gets to define what a proper human life even is? Anyway, point number 2. Scarcity is built the cage, but institutions made people love it. Okay? Historically, if you see, we were all cavemen, hunting and gathering and trying to make ends meet. That was one purpose. Second, we needed protection from the weather systems and the earth and everything else, harshness of the world as in earth and weather systems. We needed protection from it. It's too unpredictable, too many earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, droughts, famines, you name it. So we need to control it in some way. So historically you can defend some of this. Large populations under scarcity needed coordination, food, defense, inheritance, social order, transmission of knowledge. None of that happens by accident. But the problem is that the systems created for survival do not stop at survival. They metastasize like cancer. They begin as coordination mechanisms. They become identity mechanisms. They become moral mechanisms. Then sacred mechanisms. Even God, for example, which is sold very actively, by the way. That is when the trap closes. The school is no longer a place to learn. It becomes a place where the child is taught. Now you're getting into programming. This is all pretty well known in social media these days. Your worth will become extremely assessed. Your time belongs to schedules, not to inner rhythm. Authority decides relevance. Obedience dressed as discipline is maturity. Conformity dressed as performance is excellence. Self-suppression is the preparation. The religious institution no longer holds place for spiritual inquiry or philosophy. It becomes a place where existential fear is metabolized into obedience. Just a side note, even the ancient civilizations lived better than this, by the way. Suffering therefore becomes meaningful. You are meant to suffer kind. Some religions have this stuff. Hierarchy is divine. Duty is holy. Renunciation of self is noble. Questioning the structure itself is questioning the order. The economy is no longer exchange system. It becomes a hidden theology of modern life. What pays is real. Who has the most money is the king. What scales matters. What cannot be monetized is secondary. What cannot be produced, measurable output is indulgence. A human being ends up justifying their existence through function. Have you met somebody and they say, what do you do? And everybody talks about job first. I am a this and that. I am a CEO or an engineer or a doctor. That kind of a definition, self-definition arises. That's the convergence point. Function becomes morality. Third point, work was never just work. It's a behavioral leash. Modern civilization turned work into far more than survival. It made work as the primary distributor of dignity. You hold a place in your society so long as you have a title to your name. The gatekeeper of belonging, the proof of seriousness, the basis of adult identity. The justification for exhaustion with life, the excuse for postponing life. Look at how it completes the conditioning. So, therefore, people do not ask what is life, what is consciousness, what is the good use of attention, what is the highest form of human maturation, what remains of me outside of utility. They ask, instead, what do you do? How much do you make? What's your role? Are you successful? Are you productive? What's your career path? Even if you are retired, what do you do now? It's not a casual conversation, that's an ideological surveillance disguised as normalcy. Because society, what really is asking through this is, can you explain your existence on this earth in terms of recognition and reward? Are you seen? Are you invisible? Are you legible? Otherwise, you become suspicious character. Next, educational institutions did not awaken intelligence, they formatted it to suit the society. Let's be blunt here. Mass education, especially in its industrial form, was not designed to liberate consciousness, it was designed to encapsulate it administratively manageable humans. Its hidden curriculum was always stronger than its explicit curriculum. The hidden curriculum says, sit still even when your body rejects it. Schools, universities, repeat when you do not understand. Perform interest for reward. Seek permission before exploration. Measure yourself by ranking. Confuse memory with intelligence, memorizing the whole stuff. Why do you need to even do that now? Confuse compliance with character. Confuse credential with competence. All these were old school ideas which will break down now in a very big way. All over the world, just watch my words. It rewards human who can survive abstraction, routine, delayed gratification, and external judgment. Judgment was the weapon used to put you down. Anything you say or ask can be judged. So judgment doesn't require reasoning, does it? It just requires pronouncement, just like the judiciary system. Judge. The God who judges, for example. That is useful for bureaucracies, corporation states, and professional classes. It's not necessarily truthful or absolute for that matter. And this matters because once a child is trained long enough inside that machinery, they start to fear unstructured intelligence. They fear intuition. They fear non-standard thinking. They fear not being validated by a rubric. The result is a population that may be informed, skilled, certified, yet deeply estranged from its own inner authority. That's the key word there. Who are you inside? What is the authority with which you have come here as a unique human being who can never be repeated? Religious institutions often captured the transcendence and repackaged it as control. This part even needs more honesty. The hunger for meaning, death, mystery, suffering, transcendence. Is this real? It is one of the deepest features and quest of humans everywhere. But institutions repeatedly converted that hunger into structure-preserving narratives. Instead of opening the question, they often closed it. Instead of asking what is consciousness, what is self, what is liberation, what is the truth beyond conditioning, they often settled into here is the doctrine, here is the role, here is the authority, here is the permitted interpretation, here is the path of obedience, here is why you suffer unnecessarily and which is necessary. So religion often became a metaphysical wing of social management and the definition of why suffering is necessary. In this dimension, always suffering is made necessary. Have you seen that? Not always. There were always mystics, rebels, sages, yogis, hermits, philosophers, dissidents, rishis who broke open the shelf. But the institutionally, religion does something different. It is institutional form of control. That's why many societies could endure crushing inequality, grief, drudgery, burning at the stake, for example, repetition for centuries. People were not only externally managed, they were cosmologically managed. Money did something even more violent. It converted living reality into abstraction. It's not evil in itself, it's just a means created, but once it becomes a central orderly principle, it does something psychologically devastating. It abstracts life. Now you have subtracted life and made money the centerpiece. A mother's care, a teacher's insight, a monk's stillness, a laborer's fatigue, an artist's devotion, a therapist's listening. The forest as the trees, which we don't know anything about as individual consciousness, a person's presence, all get thrown into a system that asks, what is the measurable exchange value? What do I get in turn for this? The trader mentality. Everything has to be a stock market or a monetization system. This is where modern society becomes spiritually grotesque because things most essential to human flourishing are the last ones to get any attention. Things like attention, love, moral courage, silence, wisdom, integrity, contemplation, genuine friendship, non transactional care, not I give this, you give me that, inner transformation. Purpose under these systems was largely manufactured compliance with a poetic wrapper. This is the piece most people are still too timid to say, even in the social media. A huge amount of what society call purpose is just a system compatible usefulness. Human is being made to purpose himself or herself to suit a particular narrative. It's the best I can come up with. Purpose became get educated, get employed, get married, have kids, reproduce, buy property, maintain status, consume meaningless products most of the time, remain governable, retire if fortunate, die having observed and served the machine. This was wrapped in emotionally soothing phrases like contribution, responsibility, family duty, respectability, service, legacy, calling. Right? You see how things are packaged. A teacher can be real, a craft can be real, a parent can be real, a healer can be real, a priest can be real, a builder can be real. But it was never about authentic vocation and socially rewarding compliance. That blur now the machine protects itself. Because too many people clearly saw the difference and the machine would lose moral authority overnight. So what am I trying to say? Why is AI different and it attacks the justification layer, not the tool layer? Most people misunderstand AI because they think it's merely a better machine. It's not another machine. The old bargaining system said if you work, you earn. If you earn, you survive. If you survive, you belong. If you belong, your life has legitimacy. But now, what is happening? When the system can no longer honestly claim that human beings are primarily necessary as workers, then what happens? That question is a dynamite because once that premise collapses, everything that stands on top of it starts collapsing. Education, meritocracy, credentialism, professional identity, status hierarchies, economic morality, notions of deservedness, I deserve, blah, blah, blah. The moral superiority attached to busyness, the belief that life has any value because it's economically useful to someone or some system or a machine. So AI threatens all of that. AI exposes the human purpose, quote unquote, was rented from scarcity. This is brutal but necessary. You had to work because your survival demanded it. You had to accept roles because system needed continuity. You had to believe because uncertainty was destabilizing, ostracizing even. You had to obey because coordination required it. AI comes in and removes all of this stuff. Education cracks, religious authority cracks, professional identity cracks, economic morality cracks. Can AI become the greater revealer? Yes. There's the folk, or it can become a captor also. Are you becoming a slave to a slave? Are you becoming a master to a slave? Or is there any need for a master or slave in the first place? It is not. Work may be necessary, useful, beautiful, or dignified, but it cannot remain the fundamental test of who you are. Institutions preserve order. Truth is often inconvenient to them. This is why no institution encourages truth, by the way. For many people, this AI will lead to anxiety, disorientation, numbness, dependency, irritation, shallow stimulation, and identity panic. They're going to need a lot of help, most people. So, what gets born after the shattering? Once the central questions become what is a human for? Beyond economic extraction, what capacity should define maturity if not obedience and productivity? How should education change if knowledge is abundant? How should spirituality change if authority or religious moral high ground is no longer monopolizing the meaning? What does development mean when survival and usefulness are no longer organizing pressures? That would be the real leap. Therefore, The previous systems, let me summarize, relied on scarcity, authority, and belief to bind humans into socially productive lives. Money as an operationalized value, institutions legitimized structure, work organized the time, beliefs softened the pain of suffering and death, for example. I believe there's going to be some people at the other side called heaven. Purpose was then manufactured as an emotional reward for participation in the cycle. Karma, for example. In India, everything is equal to karma, isn't it? If progress is to be seriously made by the humans collectively and individually, we need to take note of these kinds of things. I'll see you in the next. Take care.